Welcome to our HCT Americas Winter Playoffs lineup breakdown. This past weekend, 80 of Europe's best players gathered to compete in the Hearthstone Championship Tour European Winter Playoffs. Out of this field of 80, 4 players emerged as EU's representatives for the Winter Championship: Bunnyhopper, Filey, Thunderup, and Viper. As of this video, the top 76 players in the Americas region are battling it out to find out which 4 among them will be joining Europe's representatives at the HCT Seasonal Winter Championship. For many players, like TempoStorm's own Amnesiac, this is the last chance to qualify for the HCT World Championship being hosted in Taiwan in April, and the stakes couldn't be higher. As is always the case with tournament play, the lineup a player brings can make or break their entire event. Because of this, many competitors look to the recent EU playoffs for guidance in what to play and what strategies to avoid. In EU playoffs, Hunter was the most represented class, unsurprisingly, with 76 out of 80 competitors bringing it. 48 of these players brought Secret Hunter, while only 18 brought Deathrattle Hunter. Shaman certainly saw a fall from grace at this event, as only 15 players chose to bring the class. 13 of them brought Even Shaman, while 2 players brought Value Shudderwock Shaman, also known as Peanut Shaman. Viper actually qualified to the HCT Winter Championship using this list. Druid saw a surprising amount of representation as 7 players brought Malygos Druid. Mage was the least represented class at EU playoffs, as only 10 players brought it, 8 of whom brought Control Mage while the other 2 brought Odd Mage. Bunnyhopper, Filey, Thunderup, and Viper emerged from this field of 80 as Europe's representatives in the upcoming seasonal championship. Players from the Americas region had a few days to process these stats and lineups from Europe and have come up with their own approach to this tournament format. Players in the Americas region submitted their deck lists on Tuesday, and after looking at the class popularity itself, not much has changed. The archetypes that players have chosen to bring from each class, however, is noticeably different from Europe's playoffs, and much of that is a result of that event itself. Hunter is still the most popular class in this field, with 68 players bringing the class. This class is well explored at this point and gives players proactive strategies that can be difficult to successfully target. Secret Hunter is still the most popular archetype, but only 42 players are bringing it this time. 15 players are bringing Deathrattle Hunter, while 8 are bringing Mid-Range and 3 are bringing Spell Hunter. We are seeing an uptick in Priest submissions for this event, with 60 players choosing the class. This is due in large part to how good the Control Priest matchups can be versus Hunter, as well as how good the Resurrect Priest matchups can be against slow control decks. Because of this, 37 players are bringing Control Priest, while 19 are bringing Resurrect Priest. There are 4 specifically anti-control decks being brought as well, with 3 players bringing OTK Priest and a lone player bringing Mecha'thun Priest. Paladin is the 3rd most popular class and also the class where we see the biggest change from Europe. There were 0 players in Europe who played Holy Wrath OTK Paladin, but it's the most popular Paladin deck submitted for the Americas playoffs, with 23 players bringing it. Many players saw how well the greedy control decks performed in Europe and wanted a deck that was good against them, as well as quick enough to beat other combo decks, and Holy Wrath Paladin fits the bill here. Aside from this new archetype, there are 16 even decks, 8 Horseman OTK decks, 6 egg decks, and 3 odd decks. The second biggest change to the Paladin class is the extreme drop-off of Odd Paladin. Many lineups in Europe were equipped to beat Odd Paladin, and it struggled as a result, so many players are shying away from it now. Warlock is the 4th most popular class again, but we see an increase in the amount of Mecha'thun builds due to how good it is against control and how well it performed in EU. Meaty managed to grab a 9th place finish in the EU playoffs with Mecha'thun in his lineup, and many players have seen the merit in bringing this archetype. The other new contender for this event is a single copy of Control Warlock featuring Demonic Project, Rin the First Disciple, and Mojo Master Zihi. This is a deck that's looking to beat up on aggro with strong board clears, beat the control mirrors with Rin, and beat the combo decks with Demonic Project and Mojo Master Zihi. Aside from these 2 decks, the rest of the Warlock field is fairly similar. 24 players are bringing Even Warlock, and 7 players are bringing Cube Lock. Rogue sees more diversity in the Americas, with a Miracle Rogue and a Malygos Rogue being tossed into the fray. 23 of the remaining Rogue players brought Odd Rogue as their choice, and 6 players brought Quest. The decrease in Odd Rogue and the rise of Quest, Miracle, and Malygos signifies lineup strategies that are trying to, once again, beat control decks. Warrior is another class that has seen a bit of a shift in the archetype preference. 14 players are bringing Odd Warrior, but 6 players are taking a different approach and bringing Odd Quest Warrior. Fibonacci himself is the only person bringing classic Control Warrior. This rise in Odd Quest Warrior is, like many other changes we're seeing, due to the success of Control in Europe. Mage is only slightly more popular here, with 12 players bringing it as opposed to Europe's 10. 10 of America's mages are Control, while 1 is an Odd Mage and the last is a Murloc Mage. The Murloc Mage is the most surprising pick, as it's looking to beat the decks that are wanting to beat up on the slow decks. Murloc Mage sports a fantastic win rate against greedy decks, so this deck is one to watch out for in this tournament. Druid is still treading water in terms of popularity after its nerfs, but even so, there are still significant shakeups in this class. Only 4 players are bringing Malygos, 2 are bringing Mecha'thun, while only 1 person is bringing Togwaggle. While we saw 0 copies of Hakkar Druid in Europe, 4 competitors in the Americas are bringing this deck as a response to the success of Control Priest specifically. While Mecha'thun Druid may be better at ending games on the spot, Hakkar Druid is much better against Priest, since it's more resilient against Psychic Screen. Shaman, despite its top 4 appearance in Europe, is only being brought by 5 players. 3 players are bringing the infamous Peanut Shaman list, while only 2 are bringing Even Shaman. Players are likely either not comfortable with Peanut Shaman or expected to be targeted, while Even Shaman has a hard time against many of the best performing decks from EU's playoffs, which makes it hard to justify bringing. Slow control decks performed well in the European playoffs, so we see a significant rise in anti-control strategies in the decklist submissions, which will likely pave the way for aggressive strategies to thrive as a result. In a tournament field like this one, where there are significant amounts of anti-control decks and lineups, it's safe to say that Control will have a tough time here. With 115 anti-control decks registered compared to the 93 control decks, it's expected that a reasonable amount of control lineups will struggle. Aggro lineups are traditionally very good versus anti-control lineups and weak to control. So the rise in anti-control and the fall of control in this meta is fantastic news for aggro players. The players who are bringing slow control decks will have to battle through over 1/3 of the field being anti-control, while aggro players are actively looking to face those lineups. Control is traditionally strong versus aggro, but even then, if the aggro decks are teched properly against potential control decks, they can easily run this field and make it to high finishes. While looking at tournament submissions can be a great way to get the idea of the expected field, there's only one way to tell who's going to do well. Watch the competitors battle it out. The Americas Winter Playoff is live and will end tomorrow with 4 representatives of the region. Be sure to tune in this weekend and root for your favorite players and send Tempo Storm's own some love. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and enable notifications to be notified anytime we post a new video on this channel.